Hello Internet friends, and welcome back to Project Garage. Thank you again for tuning in. We're here at the Hudson Stables with my car, Project Winston, our Safari 911 project vehicle. Now, if you've been kind enough to follow the rest of the series, we've been doing everything in our abilities to get it up and running nice and strong and smoothly and reliably. At this point, he's running pretty strongly, but we had not put him on the road to go at high speed to see how he would do. So my trusty mechanic William and myself hopped in the car and took it on the road just to see how it would do. All right, so we're backing out of the Hudson Stables for the first time since we have all the new parts in the car. We have actual brake lights. We have the rocker panels attached. It's actually ready for its first trip on the highway. We had our maiden voyage, got it up to speed, car sounds great, found a couple little things, one of which is the driver's side front suspension just full on failed. It just collapsed. Not the car, but just the suspension itself. So it was kind of sitting low, and so we're trying to diagnose what is going on with that before I have a little road trip. William is replacing all 4 shocks in record time before I leave my road trip tonight. So we had an extra set of 964 shocks used, but in the shop. So William's rushing to get it on. I'm helping from the corner. I ordered lunch. That's what I did. So William is over here scarfing down some lunch, and he replaced all 4 shocks in record time in a little over an hour, which is insanity to watch. Now we're doing some last little housekeeping. We're doing some bleeding of the brake lines and bleeding of the clutch. There's a little bit of air in the system on our test drive, but you know, this is why test drives are so important. So we need to finish the bleed, put these tires back on, and then we're gonna go on another drive. Okay, new suspension feels good. Here we go. William, thumbs up. We just did a test drive, final test drive for a little road trip. Man, is it looking good. Suspension settling in. It drove really smooth. Not bad for a car that's been sitting for years. After its first successful highway journey, we knew it was time to do a proper shakedown road trip. So what's a shakedown? A shakedown is putting the car on the road and driving it around and seeing what falls off, essentially. So we knew what needed to be fixed, what are some of its weaker points that need to be improved, and that's what I intended to do. Coming up on the holiday season, my intention was to drive 250 miles from the New York City area to visit family in Northern Virginia. Figured I would go down and visit family, drive around for a couple weeks, see how it did on the lovely country roads and highway, and come back here and fix whatever. So preparing ahead of our road trip, little things like we no longer need a stick to hold up the frunk. We actually have new struts in there, and just so rain doesn't get in, William put some silicone right here over the rust spots / holes on the cowls that Tim will be patching up here next month. So this will be new metal soon. I'm filming William as he installs, or rather straps down, the random items that we had rolling around the hood. For example, it wasn't until recently the car battery was actually strapped down. It would just roll around in there. The ABS computer's getting strapped down, and we're actually going to have our front trunk carpet. An actual trunk.
Missing some stuff.
Eh.
It's fine.
It's looking good. The new trunk mat's coming.
Yeah.
So I loaded my bags into Winston, and I hit the road for my first 250-mile journey in Winston. Okay, so we did it. We survived Winston's first road trip in half a decade. Now you have to remember this car's been sitting for 5+ years in the back of a warehouse, parts of its engine and powertrain disconnected. And so in the last couple of months, we've got him up to speed, and we took him on a 250-mile trip from New York City to Northern Virginia. And it went pretty well. Early on in the trip, the driver's side mirror glass fell off, so that wasn't probably a good omen. But in the scheme of things, not the end of the world. I could tell the car needed a engine tune-up or a valve adjustment. It was running a little rough at idle, but generally fine. Not really leaking any crazy fluids, which is great. Always a good sign. But early on in the trip, I noticed he was having a little trouble shifting into reverse and first, especially when we stopped for gas just outside of the city. All right, so went to move the car this morning, and let's shift it into first gear. Nope. Clutch is definitely pushed in. It is not moving. Try to fifth. Nope. Definitely not. Reverse. Definitely not. And it is not going to any gear. This clutch is done. Also, definitely need a new shift knob, but that'll be later. Now, I was fully expecting to do a clutch replacement at some point, just probably not this quickly, but that's okay. What's really great is there's a lot of really cool performance shops that know Porsches in the Northern Virginia, DC area, and I found a really great recommended shop that has ordered and will install a high-performance clutch kit and flywheel in this car. The car is going to be under a lot of strain when we do the off-road tires and lift, so we knew we'd need it eventually. Anyway, I'm excited to get it done. It's fine. In the scheme of things, I'm pretty happy. The car performed really well. Thanks to my trusty AAA membership, I was able to tow Winston for free on a flatbed to a local Porsche performance shop in the Northern Virginia area, a place called IMA Motorwork, which came highly recommended from the Porsche forums. We proceeded to pull the motor, and we found oil all over the flywheel. So that meant the rear main seal had to be replaced. We upgraded the factory flywheel to a single mass lightweight flywheel. We put in a high performance clutch. Also, we noticed the hydraulics that connected to the clutch line was all worn, which would probably affect my ability to shift. Finally, IMA Motorwork had to do some adjustments to the car's ECU program. The idle was running a little too low and was stalling out because the engine didn't know how to behave with the new lightweight flywheel. But after they did some trusty software work, the car was running great. We put him back on the road, and wow, right away I could tell it was a totally different vehicle. It was as if the car was maximizing all the power coming out of the motor now. The clutch felt heavy, but good. Shifts were crisp, and man, it felt powerful. I was having a lot of fun. Now that the clutch and the flywheel and the rear main seal was done, it was time to enjoy the car on the road. So took the next week or two to enjoy some backcountry roads in Virginia, enjoy some rainy weather and some dry weather and some good twisty roads, and I had a lot of fun. Get in, loser, we're going in for a ride. This being my first Porsche, I was incredibly impressed with how a 32-year-old vehicle performed. So after a couple weeks down in Virginia with Winston enjoying the back roads, visiting loved ones, and eating entirely too many cookies, it was time to get back up to New York City so we can get started right away on the rally suspension install. But the weather had other plans. Well, about to drive 250 miles in a 30-year-old Porsche, at least it's four-wheel drive. But it has a broken heater, so that's going to be interesting. Virginia was hit with one of the biggest snowstorms to hit the region in a long time. And not only that, as I mentioned before, the climate control had failed on this, so we had absolutely no heat. But we had to trudge onward. We bundled up in jackets and gloves and continued onward. Cars were flying off the road in front of us, but if you've never driven a Carrera 4 in the snow, I will say I was incredibly impressed. We did not lose traction once, and I have mediocre, if not decent, all-season tires on it. It did great. Aside from the fact that the windows were fogging up repeatedly due to the fact we had no defroster, so we had a bunch of towels and we would just keep on wiping the windows every 2 minutes just so I could see out. And when it was wet, we found out later on that the O2 sensor had a short on it. So whenever the roads were wet or snowy, it was shorting out the O2 sensor, which would cause the engine to sputter and backfire and lose power. So the only way to keep it going at times was I had to shift it into a higher gear and just floor it. And that seemed to help keep it running, but certainly was interesting driving a manual transmission 911 in the snow during a snowstorm at full throttle. But we got here. We got here and we're alive. And I'm super proud of how Winston's doing. And I can only imagine how he's going to be when we have the off-road tires and suspension on here. It's going to be unstoppable. So it's been an incredible couple weeks adventure with Winston. Now we have some exciting updates. Next, we're going to replace some little things that we knew went wrong during the journey. The odometer and the gauges stopped working, so we're going to pull the gauges out and do a little restoration service. We're going to replace the taillights. We have new headlights coming in, and this week we're going to be pulling out the suspension and replacing the tires, wheels. We're building the Elephant Racing off-road suspension kit, and we're doing a turbo big brake upgrade and a lot of other exciting stuff. So all the really good juicy stuff is coming up in the next episodes. If you want to see some stuff along the way, make sure to follow my Instagram and you'll see some fun stuff in my stories. Thank you very much for watching. Just wait till you see what's next.